Attention Southern Nevadans. Turn up that dial for some real talk about the issues that matter to us. From some of our valley's local leaders, business owners, and even the occasional elected official. Airing now on incredibly intelligent local radio stations and streaming worldwide at thenevadapatriot.com. Welcome to the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler.
What is up, Nevada Patriots? Welcome to the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler. I'm your host, Matt Sadler. I'm just here today to bring you a public service announcement that may or may not be a huge gripe in disguise. Either way, unless you click away or press pause on the show, here we go. You're going to listen to it. So, full disclosure, I'm not ragging on politicians today or elected officials just for the sake of throwing stones or casting shade. I was actually running to be one of these officials. So, just to put this out there are some good officials that have been elected in Pahrump and Nye County for certain. Even in the state of Nevada, there's some good ones. So if you hear this and are not offended, then you should consider yourself safe. You're one of those good guys. So this doesn't apply to you. If, however, you listen to this and become angry or offended or slighted, it's a pretty good indicator that I'm above the target and you are the one that should be doing some self-reflection. So this show's not going to be only about this gripe. I also want to use this opportunity to announce what I think to be an exciting opportunity in our community that is not overtly partisan in nature, but conservative and constitutional to the core. So we're going to get into that in the second half of this micro podcast. So this may or may not be on the radio. So if you're listening to this, it's probably not going to be on the radio station. It will probably be hosted only on my website or through Rumble or YouTube or other platforms. So please subscribe on one of those platforms or just subscribe to a newsletter through my website, thenevadapatriot.com. All sorts of good information. I know we've been doing shows about bills that are heading to Carson City for consideration to maybe be passed into laws. And I think those shows that we've been doing are very important. So we're highlighting some good and some mostly bad legislation. So stay tuned. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to be doing that again. So hopefully that's been enlightening for you. It's been enlightening for me by kind of forcing me to delve deeper into a lot of these issues and a lot of these bills. So there's still some dangerous ones out there. We need to kind of keep an eye on those things and hold our elected officials and even the other officials that we ourselves didn't vote for. We still have opportunity to let them know what we think. So their contact information's out there, whether it's email, phone numbers, addresses. If you want to lick a stamp and send it through the mail, that's still an option. So just wherever you are, let's try to be cognizant and willing to jump into that realm and into that fight. So the second half of the show, we'll be talking about another organization that we're putting together that you can be a part of, that we invite you to be a part of, or to at least learn more about coming up in the near future. So stay tuned for that. Heading back to the beginning of what we're talking about here. You know, being active politically has always been something that I've enjoyed, and being opinionated is something I've always been. So am I diplomatic? Yes, I try to be. Am I fundamentally agreeable? Ironically, yeah, I am. I don't enjoy conflicts. I don't enjoy fighting at all. However, peculiarly, once someone out there pops the bottle on a conflict, I'm all in on it. I'm all in. The biggest problem that I think I have, and I think a lot of the listeners are going to share with me, is when you see two different sides of the same person. You see that side of a person when they're campaigning for an office, or they're lobbying for an appointment, or they're putting their best foot forward. They're basically in perpetual job interview mode. That's what campaigning really is. for a lot of people, not for me really. I think I'm the same person whether I'm on a campaign trail or not. You can ask me a question whether I'm a campaigner or whether I'm an official or whether I'm still cleaning toilets for the daycare center back in the 90s, one of my first jobs, whether I'm managing a clothing store or whether I'm working at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas. I don't define myself by my occupation, whatever I do. I don't find my identity in status or money in the bank. I don't define my happiness or my contentment by how big my bank account balance is, by what size my house I live in is, whether I'm going through a foreclosure or whether I'm buying a new property. That doesn't sway my personality. And what I've sadly found out is that in our community, which albeit is more conducive to sanity than my old community years ago, living in Las Vegas and seeing how that city has kind of grown so exponentially that it has issues and problems that I don't know that I would have ever anticipated it having, but I knew we had to move out of there. So that's why we're here. So I'm not saying that Nye County is the most corrupt place or is the most, it's not. It's head and shoulders better than Las Vegas. So don't get my intentions twisted. I'm not here to rag on the system. I'm not pointing out to actual institutions at large, just the individuals within these institutions. And a lot of you know who you are, who are not in it for the right reasons. And your skin is not thick enough for doing this. See, when I hit the campaign trail, I invited conflict. Very rarely was there just, peaches and cream, kumbaya singing at my booths when I would have them at the fall festival. I invited people to have robust dialogue with me about issues that matter to them. I was running to be an assembly person out here that represents you. So to act like I've got it all figured out and to know that that different opinions and insights are out there that I can learn from is integral. I don't have it all figured out. None of these guys do. But it seems that to me, when the boxes are checked and the votes are counted and the position is secured for these people, they automatically, sometimes I think in their, either conscious of it or they're not, it doesn't really matter, but this is how they act. They act like they are now fundamentally either smarter, they command more respect, they are a different human being now that they've won, and now you are supposed to treat them differently due to their status or their new position. And I'm sorry, people in Pahrump, that's never going to happen from me. And the people that I surround myself in my life, from my wife to my friends to my family members that I do life with, I tend to surround myself with people, and always have, that believe the same thing. So when I would go out there on the campaign trail, sorry to some of you politicians, there's some carryover here because I was probably talking about some of you while I was campaigning. I'm not naming names today, by the way, so I'm not going to fall into that trap. But while I was campaigning, it seemed like to me there were sets of people who just did not want to be called out or be authentic in any way, shape, or form. It was very hard to get straight answers from people. And when you got some straight answers from people, now in hindsight, I'm looking at those answers that I got from some of these other candidates. Some of them did not make it through, but some did. Some won their elections. They're a different human being now. So everybody has their own special interests, so everybody has their own things that affect their lives, that issues that are important to you, that are important to me. They may not always be the same exact issues. So everybody has their own personal experience. So when you're talking to officials, you ask them, certain questions, but you get an answer on the campaign trail that is not congruent to what you get once they're elected. And I'm sorry, but if you are in a situation where you are being asked by your constituents now, as you're holding an elected office or elected position, there should be no such thing as a hard question for you. Because here's the thing. Questions might make you feel uncomfortable. But you have to ask yourself, why would a question make you feel uncomfortable? So when someone comes up to you, and it could be a public setting or just, you and a few people hanging out in a room, and you're asking them a question, there should really be no hard question, because if you literally can't answer it, you don't know the answer, just say you don't know. If you literally cannot do something about the person's concern, say that you can't do something about that. And if you don't want to do something about that, have the courage and have the guts to say, look, you see it this way. I am an elected official, but I see it differently, and I'm not going to do that. But this attitude that if you get asked a question to some of these people, or these people get asked a question, and they get offended that they feel like they're put on the spot, or it's inappropriate, or, you asked me that question to make me look bad. And it's like, no, not really. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm just asking a question. I have a legitimate concern. And I'm sorry when I've been brought up my whole life to mean what I say what I mean. There shouldn't be so much thought into it. And it always reminds me of those Judge Judy episodes where people are explaining their stories, and she can, more often than not, become a human lie detector and say, well, you're probably lying, because you can ask questions a certain way, and if people are really stressing out about how to answer them, there's a very good chance that they're not giving you the full story. They're not being truthful. They're uncomfortable. And at the very best, maybe they're being a little cowardly, because maybe they do want to answer the question, but they're worried about giving the wrong answer, so they squirm. I think we should expect more out of our elected officials. So, by all means, they're here to serve you. They're here to serve me. That doesn't mean that we can kick them around. That doesn't mean we can beat them up. We're not going to deliberately do things to embarrass them. That's not right. But if you have a legitimate concern about something, and it may affect your family, it may affect your work, it may affect your kids in school, it may affect your business, and they make you feel like, well, that's not appropriate, why are you putting me on the spot? The problem really is with them. I consider that a form of gaslighting. So if you're not sure what that is, look it up. People do that all the time. So what they'll do is they're feeling bad about something, they're going to try to rephrase their response to make you feel bad for something that they should feel bad for, and they're turning it around on you. And the more I'm in the, I hate to say, the political realm, I guess, whether it's attending Republican Party meetings or just kind of mingling with people that have either ran for office, are running for office, or won their office, I'm seeing a lot more into people's mindsets, and it's also making me, I always tell my wife, you should be friendly to many, but be friends with few. That saying, there's a lot of wisdom in that. I wish I could take credit for that, but I heard that from someone else. It's probably in a book that I didn't read, but I heard about it through somewhere, some meme or something probably, right? That's the 5-second attention span we all have now online through social media, right? But there's truth to that, because if we start thinking everybody is saying exactly what they feel, you're gonna get your heart broken in this world, because very few people are authentic human beings, and it's partly, we can't really blame a lot of the elected officials if they're not authentic people, and this goes both parties, both major parties, third parties, whatever people are holding position. The system is in such a way that it almost encourages or makes it that's how you have to be in order to make it to that point. I talked to my wife about it and a few friends, and I'm pondering, my future, whether I'd ever run for office or run for something again. I don't know. But as far as being active politically, absolutely. Because ultimately we have to live in our communities, we have to live in our state, live in our country. we're always, like Reagan said, one generation away from losing it all. I believe that. You know, and once we pass that point, I think you drift so far away from home that you can't make yourself get back. And that's what I fear that we're going to do one day. So, but these people that attain office, oftentimes, you know, they're a product of a system that shapes them to be this way. And to put it as plainly as I can, so when you enter the political realm, say it's a lower local position, whether it's, you know, county commissioner or even in the local, you know, assembly races, school board, things like that, even in those races, no one will take you seriously unless you're considered, quote, unquote, viable, right? So how is it in our, whether you're Republican or Democrat, what's the major metric for deciding if you're viable? It's money, right? It's how much money do you have? The irony of that is you have to think, how do the people that become viable get their money? Oftentimes, not all the time, oftentimes they establish a war chest or get an injection of a lot of money because they've had to sell out to some special interest, some unofficial quid pro quo, where they're agreeing, you know, you do this is what I'm going to do. People are, in effect, influence peddling. So right off the bat, even from the local level, you have candidates that in some ways are compromised, and in my estimation, morally compromised from the get-go, whether they're running for county commission or school board or state assembly, state senate, whatever these positions are, in some ways are already compromised, because right off the bat, they're beholden to other interests that aren't necessarily the best interest of the community that they're going to be serving. You know, this is an interest from one person or one entity within that community that may or may not be in the best interest of everyone. And then when they graduate that level and they get those lower offices, and then they're seeking U.S. Congress or the U.S. Senate or bigger seats, governor, lieutenant governor, whatever it is, you're dealing with people that have now their baseline, their foundation is not based upon virtue or good ideas or effective governance or, you know, real convictions to the core of their being. They're basically an army of politicians that don't work for you, that work for the special interests. So you think, how is that possible to change? Well, aside from being a self-funded candidate who puts, you know, local races tens of thousands of their own dollars, or in bigger races, you're talking self-funding like Donald Trump, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into your own campaign. Aside from those people doing that, how can we help field better candidates? And that's when we kind of come into the announcement here of a new group that we're going to be forming. We're going to be meeting monthly, at least in the beginning, probably at our location where we do our podcast here at the Bell Bonds office near 160 in Basin. So what it is, it's going to be a grassroots conservatives of Nevada group. So the cool acronym sound would be GCON. I always thought that sounds kind of cool, GCON. So grassroots conservatives of Nevada, obviously the Pahrump chapter. So that's what we're going to try to start here. And the intention with that, although I'm definitely a Republican, I'm a Lincoln fan to the nth degree. I love the platform of the actual party. I think there's very few things in it that I disagree with. It's funny because I think half the people that get elected as Republicans, especially on the national level, the way they are, you have to think that they hate the platform. They don't really stand up for it. So in some ways, I'm a lot more Republican than most Republicans. And I'm semi-active in the party, but my interest in being too active in the local party, or especially the state party, very little interest in coordinating efforts with the state party. There's a massive leadership change that needs to happen. I don't I don't condone a lot of the underhanded, in my feeling, things that they've done. I mean, I have firsthand anecdotal experience with being really shafted by this system. So, I'm a little bit biased myself. But even before that, I don't believe that they do an effective job at advancing the ideals of the party and then having that trickle down to the local level so we get effective leaders and good people in all these races and winning and doing a good job at winning at those levels, so doesn't mean I'm going to be ran out of my party. A lot of people in my party need to step out before I would ever remotely consider leaving this party. I mean, they're the ones that need to go. This party's been infiltrated by people that lack conviction. Still 100 times better than the Democrat Party, full disclosure there. 100 times better. So doesn't mean it can't improve. It can improve a lot. So the intention of our grassroots group that we're putting together here is going to be one of the main facets. I'm sure it's going to be multifaceted, but the facet that really hits home with me that I have a heart for is to identify, to come alongside, to help candidates become viable based upon their virtue, their merit, their character, their work ethic, and their capabilities, and not their bank account, and not their ability to fundraise. See, if we can help these candidates set the foundation on viability on a different metric that doesn't revolve around, $5,000 donations from Pfizer or other casinos or whatever, if we can help them become viable in that regard, then effective campaigning, and I've heard it said before by numerous political strategists, in our local state and even nationally, that it's not the candidate that has the most money that always wins, but a candidate always has to have enough money. So they must have enough money to get their message across, enough money to get the name recognition out there, enough money to get their brand in front of voters, and however you think that's effective. On the campaign trail, after really hitting it hard last spring, we found out a lot of stuff that we did was highly effective. A lot of stuff that we did was not so effective. And we come to find out the stuff that you really think you have to spend a lot of money for, you really don't. You have to be smart with your money. You have to be a good steward of your resources. And most of all, you have to just be connecting to your voters, however you can do that. And there's a few different ways to do that. And so those will be things that we're discussing. But at a grassroots fundamental level, if we can't get the candidates viable and winning elections at the local level, it's going to be almost impossible to expect the world out of our U.S. Senate level Republicans or U.S. Congress Republicans or the next governors that might be running in the different states to get really good candidates, because if they don't have another type of alternative foundation, they're going to be compromised by their fundraising early on. They're going to be compromised. They're not going to be stellar candidates. They're going to say a lot of the right things, and then just like how I was talking about earlier in the podcast, they're going to sing a whole different tune once they're in office. They're going to change. That's a sad fact. So ideally, we would like to have our first meeting next month in March. So sometime probably in the latter half of the month, we're going to try to put some stuff together, get the information out there. But again, the location would be very close to the corner of 160 and Basin at the Bail Bond office. Meeting days will probably be on Mondays. Don't hold me to that, but that's looking like it'll be somewhere toward the end of the month on maybe the fourth Monday around that time. As a general rule is when we're going to try to probably have these meetings. So tell your friends, whether they're Republican or Libertarian, IAP, nonpartisan, independent people, just have them look into it, because I think it's a good thing in our community if we can kind of come together. There's a lot more shared values that we have than we probably think. Sometimes I think I might be saying some things in groups of people that might come off as offensive, and then come to find out everybody in that group agrees with me, but no one's really said it. So don't be surprised if we have a lot of common ground and a lot of stuff that we can actually get accomplished, I think, coming at it from a different way. And, just as a word of caution to a lot of you established Republicans that have seats maybe in unopposed areas, whether it's state Senate, state assembly, throughout the state of Nevada, a lot of you may not be doing the best job, and I'm not above supporting candidates to primary you, to take that spot, and to go represent us in Carson City, because honestly, having like-minded people in different areas of the state can actually work for our own interests better than sometimes our own representatives that we vote for. So if you get someone that shares your values and they're living in Gardnerville, Nevada or somewhere, and they can become the next representative, then support that candidate. So we're not going to limit the bounds of this group to only the very local issues. Yes, local politicians, but possibly local politicians in different areas of our incredibly large state. We have an incredibly large county, for that matter. So we have the ability, I think, to really make a substantial difference, and not just, getting riled up and having red meat thrown at us and yeah, Joe Biden bad, Biden bad, Kamala Harris bad. What can we do practically to make a difference other than just complaining? So let's put some rubber to the road here and find out what we can do. So details of that will be emerging here shortly. So keep tabs on us at the NevadaPatriot.com. We'll have details on this new organization that we're forming. Again, the name will be Grassroots Conservatives of Nevada, GCON. So we're looking forward to you participating. So that is going to wrap it up for this special episode of the Nevada Patriot Podcast. Again, I'm Matt Sadler, and on behalf of the Nevada Patriot Podcast, God bless.
You've just spent some of the best minutes of your life hanging out with Matt Sadler at the Nevada Patriot Podcast. Thank you for listening. Tell a friend and join us next time. After you catch your breath, check out the NevadaPatriot.com for more content, advertising opportunities, and to give listener feedback. That website again is the NevadaPatriot.com. Until next time, Patriots, stay American.